Hello everyone, hope you're well, thanks for tuning in. So, had loads of people on and off over the past few years actually that I've been doing GP2 Joey and this mad universe, wanting to know how I do everything in terms of breaking it down into how I operate the pre-qualifying sessions, how I do the qualifying sessions, how I do the races, how I do the news, how I do everything else behind the scenes with it. I ran a Twitter poll today just to sort of ask people kind of thing if they would be interested in it, in a breakdown of it, and obviously the answer was a resounding yes. So what I've also decided to do now, I've had the results in and it was 97% positive actually, and thank you to all those who took the time to vote. I must say thank you very much. So what I've actually decided to do is to split the proposed idea that I had into three. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do three separate videos. One on how I operate all the pre-qualifying, how all the teams and the drivers are mapped out, what it looks like when I'm doing it behind the scenes, because I figured that would also just give a little bit more involvement for everybody just to be able to see exactly what I do on a race by race basis. Then I'm going to do another video on how the races are then run, and then I'm going to do another video on all the other stuff that goes on behind the scenes in terms of team developments, how they have all their money for the year, their sponsors, drivers, the costs of engines, costs of designers, balancing it all out. So it's a bit of an explanation in this kind of fantasy F1 that is currently out there that people have been playing for quite a few years. I'm doing something very similar behind the scenes just to make it seem a little bit more realistic rather than just random decisions that I make in terms of drivers that end up at what teams, what engines end up getting in the back of certain cars, all that kind of thing. So there's a lot that really goes on behind the scenes, so I figured it'd be quite cool to sort of share all of that with you over three videos. It'll answer a lot of questions that people have got, and who knows, it maybe even inspire some people to do something of a similar ilk. It's great fun. As a lot of people probably know, I started a new job only about 3 weeks ago now, which is very full on, a lot of hours I have to work, but I thoroughly enjoy it. And the great thing is that I have a means of the GP2 Joey universe as a bit of a calm down from the working day and into the weekends and things like that. So it's a really good way to be able to unwind, get immersed in the Excel documents that I use behind the scenes and what I'm going to think about, how news stories are going to drop on Twitter, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go through that in the third video, but for now we're going to concentrate on the pre-qualifying. So I'll go through and explain everything about that, literally right from the start to the finish. We're actually going to do a simulation of what the qualifying would look like potentially in the next Grand Prix in the GP2 Joey universe, which is the 1993 German Grand Prix. So I'm going to run through all of that to see how it operates, to give you a bit of a flavour for how the teams actually, how their times are all worked out, how they get into it, and hopefully how they can get in to the race itself. Hope you enjoy it. Not sure why I wasn't looking at the camera at the end of that short introduction there, but anyway, Lord knows what was going through my brain. So this is the fabled GP2 Edit, the most amazing editing tool I think anybody's known for any game out there. So these are the 6 teams that are in the pre-qualifying: Brabham Ferrari, LaRousse Peugeot, BMS Dallara Ferrari, Pacific Ford, Zaxby Yamaha, Andrea Moda. Now, as you may or may not know, it is not possible to run any less than 26 cars in the race. It's not possible to run any more than 28 cars in a session. So, in order to be able to run the pre-qualifying session, I have ghost teams and drivers. So there's no names on the teams or the drivers, but the way that they are created is I've got all the teams, all their data loaded: Andrea Moda, Benetton, BMS Dallara Ferrari, who I drive for. But right at the very bottom is no team. So I basically selected all of those at the start of the season so that there would only ever be a maximum of 6 teams in the pre-qualifying session. And how that's rotated I'll explain in a short little while. So that's basically the car set there. Now, in terms of driver performances throughout the year, so obviously these backmarker teams have very little funds compared to the top runners. So the way that I calculate all of that is basically I have a spreadsheet, which I will go into more detail in the third and final video.
But each race has its own separate, you can see at the top of the screen here, has its own race number. So we're in the 1993 season, this is round 10. So this is getting ready to run the race weekend in Hockenheim in Germany. So what you can see here is these areas that are read out, they're readied out, they are basically to say that that team has no more funds available to either update the car for 1993 or to put any upgrade tokens towards their 1994 car. So I'll give you a very quick overview of what the upgrade and the tokens means. So basically, I'm going to go into more detail with it in the proper video, at the third one. But basically, a quick overview is that the teams have a certain amount of budget, which then entitles them to a certain amount of upgrades, whether they decide to spend it on the chassis, reliability, or on the engine, all of which you can see here 1 to 3. Reliability is minus 500, and I'll run through the details on those. For the engines, 1 to 10 brake horsepower, unless they use 2 tokens, within which they are given a random number, which I use on a random number generated website, to give them a value between 10 and 20 extra brake horsepower, depending on the engine. So the tokens, basically, one of these tokens equates to £500,000 worth of their R&D budget. So, but again, I'll explain that in more detail. So you can see here that Tyrrell have got 1 token left. They have elected to spend that 1 token to add to their 1994 car design. Footwork, Lotus, Jordan, Brabham, Larus, all of them. They've all got no more money left. Minardi are in the same boat as Tyrrell, and so is Sauber. They've spent a lot of money, but now they've got 1 token left, which they are going to put into next year, unless, and this is the same for all the teams, unless they can get extra finance towards the end of the 1993 season or into 1994, those tokens won't increase any further. They'll just have to find extra sponsors for 1994. And you can see here that Andrea Moda, the last time they had an update, which was the Judd engine, was at round 5. So that's the upgrades. Now, what I also do for the drivers, you can see here their practice and qualification performance numbers. So they are also moved up and down according to their race positions. So you can see here it's just from the Monaco Grand Prix until the British Grand Prix that we had last week. So you can see here that, as an example, Michael Andretti in Monaco finished 5th, which was higher than was expected. Good drive from him, and from Mika Hakkinen, who finished 6th. So both of them got an extra 20 points there onto their driver token. So basically, if that was for any of the back market teams here, you could see Andrea Moda. If I was going to add Michele Alboreto an extra 20, it would be for racer. You see his numbers are 16,340, it would go up to 16,360 and 16,360, and the same for Roberto Moreno, it would be the same. And what that basically means is that their race calculation performance would go up by 20, certain amount of percentage, and it would be the same for the qualifying as well. So that's basically how the numbers can fluctuate throughout the season. So if I show you here, Akaya and Hattori, Alboreto and Moreno, they've just basically stayed the same because they've not been able to progress any further into the race weekends themselves. Other teams, so if you have a look at the Sauber lineup of Leto and Carl Vendinger, you can see that they finished 9th and 7th, so they got 20 points extra. Leto finished 19th, so he lost those 20 points that he gained the previous race. Vendinger finished another 7th, so he gained another 20 points. So it's a little bit up and down, but it all adds to a little bit of realism for it as well, because as they say, you're only as good as your last race. So that's basically how the numbers are calculated on there. And then all we basically do is, as I say, we've got the ghost teams there, so they are going to be there, but you won't see them either in the race videos that are posted on YouTube or on Twitter as well. So but that's basically how it is. So I've been a little bit sneaky with that, but who cares? It's my world and I'll do what I want. So all we do is we basically export it into the game, and then we basically just open up the game, and then I'll go through how the session is actually run. So let's get started. Click OK. Go to the main menu, and I'm just going to run through this here just to show you that all the teams and drivers from the 6 teams are there, and then you've got the ghost teams that don't have any names or drivers shown, but they will still appear. Go into drive menu, into drive options, and obviously it's qualifying with it focused on. It's a 30-minute session. Not bothered about the practice or the race distance because this is pre-qualifying. Forget about the quick race because we're not going to do that either. it's going to be literally just a qualifying session. So we go into a non-championship race, go up to the German track, click OK, and then we're not interested in the Friday free practice. What we want is the Friday qualifying session. So now we're in the circuit. You can see Hattori, we are in car with him automatically, and here's one of the Ghost Riders, and another, and then we reach Ivan Capelli in the BMS Dallara, and another Ghost Rider. So, and there's Philippe Alliot. So Alliot, obviously you can see here, he is going to go out of the pits first. The most important thing to remember for this is that I actually don't sit here for the whole half an hour running it. I skip forward a few places, take a few screenshots, and then get them uploaded onto Twitter, take a few different video captures, and then they also get uploaded into Twitter. So I'm going to put up the GP lap information just so that when I'm reporting it on Twitter, you can see how everybody's getting on. And then all we basically do is we do a quick acceleration of the time, wait until they put up one lap, go back into the race. Alliot, you can see Blundell has already gone quickest, but this is a key thing that I wanted to show. So sometimes you'll see on some circuits that the drivers are putting in a very poor lap time, and that is 9 times out of 10 because they've got caught up behind one of these ghost cars. So you can see here that Blundell, he got trapped behind that ghost car and he's lost a tenth despite going quicker ever so slightly in the first sector. So we'll have a look now, just see how much time he's actually lost. But then if I show you what I'm going to do afterwards, so I'm going to take a screenshot there of Mark Blundell going round. We'll just follow him going through here because it'd be interesting just to sort of show you how much time he has lost, because he's going to go slower than a 1:48.4. So you can see there it's a 1:48.5. So he's only lost a tenth behind the ghost car. And we'll have a look at Capelli going round as well. And then basically all I do is this, come out of the race, paste the clip that I've got, and then that just basically gets uploaded into Twitter as a feed. And I do exactly the same with the actual video capturing. Computer's playing up again there, I'm not sure why. But anyway, so there we go. So I want to accelerate the time, just sort of see where we get to. Wait for a few more drivers to put up some lap time so we can see there that Andrea motor cars are out. So again, same thing would happen. I would take a screenshot or a video capture. There's Ratzenberger in the Pacific. It'd be nice to see him actually qualify for a race once. And Cor Ursa coming out of the pits as a ghost driver comes in. So it's quite manic, but it's actually really interesting because you never know how any one team or driver is actually going to get on when this session starts because of getting blocked. So that's basically how it's run, and then all I do is at the end of the session just simply make sure we get down to 0, and then if you see here you can see that Eric Bernard was the fastest on a 1:48.419, and then the two Brabhams, Ursa and Blundell, and then Alliot, and then Capelli and Morbidelli. So that's basically how it works. And then in terms of posting these results on Twitter, we do exactly the same again. Control print screen, sorry, and then go into there, and then it's in the system. Now, obviously, as some of you eagle-eyed followers of GP2 Joey on Twitter would have noticed, there are blanks when it does come to populating these results. So what I basically do is this. I'll show you. So it's just basically to cover up the lap times, and then they basically just get blocked out like this, and then we basically just make sure that all the times are covered, and then it looks as though we've got only 12 runners, which is ideal. That's what we want. And then that is copied, pasted onto Twitter, and released as the official results for the pre-qualifying session. So how do we work out who actually makes it into the race weekend? So what we want to do is we go into pre-qualifying lap time chart for each race. So you can see here it's set up for the German Grand Prix. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just highlight that on one side and then put in the lap time. So basically all we start doing is we put in the lap time. So you can see that Eric Bernard was fastest on a 1:48.419, and then it was Ursa 48.450, and then Blundell on a 48.419. 461. Dear me. Come on, Joey. So it's a 1 minute 48.461. So there we go. So we do that for all the runners. We put those lap times in, and then what we want to do is we then want to work out what the average lap time is. So I basically just do. I haven't got it set up to automatically do it because I'm far too busy and I'm far too lazy, quite honestly. So all I do is I just get the calculator out, work out 48.461, 48.450. Work out the average of that, and then that would give me an average lap time. So let's just say, for example, it's 48,600, and then let's say that we've populated the LaRousse one, and that's a 48.695 or whatever, and then we've got it for all the other teams. So what we would basically know is that Brabham have ended up quickest, LaRousse have ended up second, and then third has been BMS Dallara as an example, and then they've finished fourth. Let's say they've finished fifth, and then Pacific have finished, Zap Speed have finished sixth as an example. So that would basically tell you that those are the 6 drivers that are going to go through, and they are the ones who unfortunately will be going home early. So the reason that I put the 4th, 5th and 6th in these finishing positions here is because when it comes to working out the pre-qualifying average race finishing positions, obviously for the teams that don't make it through, I need to work out exactly where they finished in the running order in the pre-qualifying. So you can see there that 6th place would end up with 33rd and 34th place, 5th place would be 31st and 32nd, and 4th is 29 and 30, and obviously whoever finishes 3rd or doesn't qualify in the race would end up with 27th and 28th, and that would then affect their overall race finishing position, which is why you can then see that in the pre-qualifying standings, Sauber, after the first race of the 4, because obviously I run them from rounds 1 to 4, and then 5 to 8, and then from 9 to 12, and then 13 to 16. So they're broken down into 4 manageable chunks. So there's plenty of opportunity for teams to actually get promoted out of pre-qualifying based on their average race finishing position. So you can see here that after the first of the 4 rounds, which would be round 9, these teams are all safe. Sauber got promoted last time; they're leading the way. Minardi are second. Their average their average race finish is 13.0. As you can see there, both their drivers, Fittipaldi and Martini, posted 12th and 14th at Silverstone, giving them the average of 13. And Andrea Moda is still, unfortunately, rooted right at the very bottom on 33.5 because they have failed to qualify numerous times. If you go into their chart here, you can see they've actually failed to qualify for every single race this year. So a lot of promise in the pre-season for them and nothing delivered. Exactly the same for Pacific. So that's basically how it's worked out. And then at the end of round 12, however this chart looks, if anybody does get moved out of pre-qualifying to replace one of these teams here, then that's what will run from rounds 13 to 16. Next stage. So we basically bring up car set. Now we get to the race weekend car set, and this has basically got all the other 11 teams that are in there as well. So you can see you've got the likes of Ligier, Prost, Renault, Ferrari, Williams, McLaren, Benetton, Lotus, Jordan. They're all in there, and even Sauber, because they got promoted out of pre-qualifying after the French Grand Prix. So now basically we need to load up those 3 teams that made it through in the order within which they finished the pre-qualifying session. So let's just say, for argument's sake, we're going to put in Brabham, and then we're going to put in LaRousse, who are in there. There's LaRousse, and then we're going to put in BMS Dallara. So actually, let's just put in Zach Speed, because they're more likely to have made it through, aren't they? So then you've got your full 14 teams, okay? Drivers 1 to 28. Obviously 26 of them are going to make the race, and one of these teams, or 2 of these drivers are not going to make it through. And as I said before, this is only a simulation, so we would basically then just export all of those into the race, and that is how the pre-qualifying session works. So I hope that was insightful. Hope you've enjoyed it. And as I said, next one that I'm going to do will be for how the races are run. So it's going to basically just take over from where we are with this car set, and then that will take me through all the races, how I run those in terms of driver performances, the captures, all that kind of thing. And then the third video will be a more in-depth one of all the stuff behind the scenes. But until then, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.